Namaste, viewers, and welcome to Book Talk with Dr. Meenakshi Jain. Thank you, Dr. Jain, for joining us today. It's Onam, it's also Eid for those who are celebrating it. So we wish everyone a very hearty and happy festival time. I'm especially delighted to welcome you, Meenakshi ji, because I consider you, as you already know, since I've got a chapter on you in my book, as the nation's historian, if not our leading nationalist historian today. And your record of work is actually incomparable. And instead of introducing you or even trying to introduce you, I would like to ask you about your own intellectual journey. But just a couple of words for those who don't know you. You're a member of parliament, and we are very proud that you're representing, literature, arts, and the intellectual, should I say, community in India today, as well as a Padma Shri. And I'm very, very happy to show our viewers your two new books. One is Invincible Somnath, a saga of millennia, and the other book is on Raja Bhoja Paramara. So we will discuss both these books at some length and maybe also go into some of your, I would say, really defining books for our recent intellectual history, The Flight of the Deities, your books on Sati, your books on Banaras or Kashi, and your great contribution, I would say, to the cause of Swaraj, of reclaiming our civilization. So, in the tradition of Swaraj intellectuals, I think you are a leading exponent today. So, once again, congratulations on your two books and welcome to Book Talk. So please, if you don't mind, share a little bit about your own intellectual journey.
Thank you so much for the generous and warm welcome. I'm delighted to be here. My journey is not a personal journey. It is the journey of a civilization, if I can put it so boldly. My journey started when I thought that I would write a path breaking book on Ayodhya because that was the burning issue in public intellectual discourse and political discourse. And I read and traced every source that I could find on Ayodhya, including British gazetteers, revenue records, and judicial records, everything. And I came to the conclusion. I was actually surprised that all the evidence is pointing towards one side and there is nothing on the other side. Because as a historian, I cannot be biased and only focus on one side of the debate. I have to look for and give adequate space and importance to a viewpoint which may also deserve attention. So I did a lot of honest research, and when I completed the book, because that was the burning topic at that time, so I thought that I have written a very comprehensive, fair book, and that the publishers will all line up at my doorstep asking for the right to publish the book. And the reception to the book is actually an important episode in our intellectual and civilizational journey. I got no response from the first publisher. For 3-4 months, there was no response. Then I rang up. I said, I've submitted this manuscript. They said, we will get back to you shortly. Shortly was when I reached home, the manuscript had been returned. And, I don't give importance to myself as a person. I gave importance to the narrative that we are trying to bring to the fore. And, it took me quite some time to recover from that. And I approached 3-4 other publishers after that, and I met the same response. So I asked one of them, I said, can you please tell me what is the shortcomings in my book for my own intellectual development? And I would like to learn a lesson from this. So they said, ma'am, there's nothing wrong with your book. The point is that if we publish your book, we will be branded as communal publishers, and all our reputed authors will leave us. So we cannot take that risk. I don't blame them because at that time I was not an established name. And for them to risk their entire, publishing career for the sake of promoting an unknown publisher on a subject on which there was so much controversy, I don't blame them. And Makarand, from every setback, you learn something. So I have no grudge because that helped me in my journey. Finally, the book was published and it got no review. So when you publish a book, then how do people know that you've published a book? So, it took more than a year for some people to know something about a book that I had written. So from that, but that is again I say it is a trouble or a hurdle that the Hindu civilization was facing. That
Yes.
even if all the evidence is on one side, and you're trying to be as fair as possible to both sides, and you're looking for material which will give the view of the other side, even then you are branded as communal and you're not published.
Oh, absolutely. This conspiracy of silence, if I may call it that, or cancel culture, is only the tip of the iceberg. Because,
Yes,
as you rightly said, that this is a very deep and long drawn struggle to regain our selfhood. I wanted to actually devote a separate episode to Ayodhya because,
yeah,
in a way, it's the turning point, in our political history as well. The Ayodhya movement, in a way, propelled the BJP to power at the center. So I wanted a separate episode on it
yes,
because
yes,
yours is the most comprehensive account of what happened, in Ayodhya. But I just wanted to sort of take you back to your childhood. Your dad was a very famous editor,
yes,
Sri Girilal Jain. I remember
yes,
growing up reading his editorials. He and Mr. Shamlal. I remember.
yes,
So I wanted to ask you about your shaping influences when you were a
yes,
younger person, a student.
yes,
Were you also sort of indoctrinated like many of us were?
yes,
You
exactly.
know, okay.
I was. And the thing about my upbringing was that my father never tried to impose his views and his thinking on us. So I went to the history department, and all the history professors were leading lights of the left group. And in fact, all of them played a very sterling role in the movement against the Ram Temple. So, but my father's, he didn't want to direct our attention or our thinking in a particular way. He said, I am confident that they will find their way back. So, that was something very extraordinary. And his friends were also so many leftists because there were not many right thinking people, if I can put it that way. Uh, but I have to say this, Makaran, that when I started writing on Ayodhya, all these people had been my teachers and professors. But I have to acknowledge the fact that they did not speak or write a word against me. So that is something that should be acknowledged. And Professor D.N. Jha, I'm very fond of him. He passed away recently. He was my teacher and he was so active in the Ayodhya movement. So he would send me his articles and books without comment, and I would send my books to him without comment. So, those were very difficult times. But still, uh, as I said, it's nothing personal. It is that we see Hindu resurgence. Look at the 2024 when the Prime Minister inaugurated the new temple, the fervor that was there. I mean, everyone thought it's part of a national movement. So, it's a,
Definitely. I was there and you were there too. I
yes,
don't think we met in Ayodhya though. It was very
yeah,
crowded and it got a bit chaotic later. But, just one more point going back to your childhood. Isn't it also true that your dad, towards the, end of its career, was also open to the other side. Like I remember Professor KJ Shah telling me how he had talked to your dad, and also Sitaram Goyal and some other people. So there was a different kind of adda also going on, though
yes,
it was very marginal. Dharampal ji. So these people were very marginal to the mainstream narrative.
yes, yes,
But I think one of the remarkable things about your father, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that he was also opening up to this other, the other discourse,
Now,
which had been,
yes, I'm
completely
very glad that
sidelined.
you pointed that out. Sitaram Goel and Ramsarup uncle, they attended college with my father from the age of 18. So they were, now what happened was the turning point adversely in my father's career was when he wrote an article after the demolition of the Babri Masjid. He wrote an article on 9th December 1992.
92,
And
correct.
he presented that this was a civilizational upsurge. This was a civilizational movement, and it has nothing to do with a particular community. One community is trying to reclaim its heritage. And that uh, article, it created a huge furor because many of the left intellectuals, journalists, etc., were not at all open to the idea that this could be another argument, and they felt that this is a betrayal of one of our kind. And sometime after that, uh, things became very difficult for my father, and this pressure from outside actually forced him to leave the paper.
Correct,
So
correct. I wanted to come back to this because the force of the left was so great that
yes,
anybody who did not conform, or who did not kowtow, was actually, removed.
yes,
And though you said that at the level of the department, there was a, agreement to disagree, so to speak. There was a civil discourse. And I knew some of these great historians, though I was younger and I was in St. Stephen's at that time. I remember, Romila Thapar, who had just joined JNU, in fact, had come. She was the big star, and etc., etc. Anyhow, the point being that now, unfortunately, even that is gone. So we'll have to come back to this problem later. Your own experiences at ICHR, without going into particulars, my experiences at IIAS, where I was director, that we are now, unfortunately, facing, competing intolerances. But anyhow, going back to those days, one of the other interesting things was that Arun Shori, who had, in a way, teamed up with Sitaram Goel to write this book, Hindu Temples, What Happened to Them,
yes,
was also another person on the other side, as it were. But the force of this lobby, with its intercontinental back and forth tie-ups.
yes,
So,
absolutely.
so, so you're publishing, I mean, history, I can completely relate to it because there was no voice, there was no avenue for expression. You couldn't be published, you couldn't get a job, you would never go to the history department of the main DU history department, in arts faculty, whatever. So I wanted to come back to your PhD because if I remember right, it was actually on political economy, uh,
Yes, political.
and
Actually,
agrarian,
no, it
right?
was not agrarian. It
Okay,
was
okay,
on the Congress Party.
okay,
Uh,
okay.
yeah. So I thought that given the hostility,
Yes,
it's it's best that I move to another discipline department, related department, but where I would not be ostracized and that I would get a degree. Because, it was important in academics to get a PhD degree. So that is the reason why I shifted. It was modern history, but it was history nonetheless.
but
And
it was
I've,
political science. The department
yeah,
was political science.
yeah,
But you're in very eminent company because Sir Jadunath Sarkar was also his. He studied English. He read English. His honors degree was in English. So a lot of the great historians were actually not in the history departments, and the professional historians who then sort of took over, you know, Shobhan Sarkar, Shumit Sarkar. There were a lot of the leftists from Calcutta who came to Delhi, both
yes,
to DU and to JNU. And in JNU, we had, of course, apart from Ramila Thapar, we had S. Gopal, we had many other people. Arbans Mukhya for the medieval
Yes,
history.
yes.
And they did not allow any other voices actually to to
So
rise.
in my
And
case,
yeah,
the
yeah.
switch was dictated by the urge for survival. You know, because there was no other profession that I could go to. This was the only job, and I didn't want to. And there was a requirement that you have to finish PhD within a particular time period. So I thought that this will be the least stressful. And I have to say, Makran, that all the publishing houses, their boards were dominated by left historians. So there was no way that I was going to be published. I'm grateful for two small things in my life. One, that I got a college job, which allowed me, to survive domestically, if I can put it, because we have to run houses. So that was very important for me. And then the fact that a small publishing house, Aryan Books International, showed the courage to publish me. So
Yes, we
the
have to talk about Aryan Books International too,
yes,
because they
yes,
have consistently published your books, and the quality of publication, of printing, publishing, paper is very high, I must say.
yes.
The binding, so we have to, profile them as well and acknowledge them. But I remember that your PhD was also published. Was it by Manohar
No,
or no?
it was by this I forgot Konarak and
Konarak,
Bharti Vidya
Konarak,
and Bharti Vidya. So
Bharati
that
Vidya Bhavan. And
that
it
was
comes to,
also
yes.
impossible to get published. So these are the two turning points in my life that I'm grateful to college that
Yes.
gave me the means to sustain myself.
And this was Kamala Nehru College, right?
Gargi.
Gargi, sorry, Gargi. They're next to
And
each other.
I'm grateful to Aryan Books International. They have published stalwarts like B.B. Lal, Dilip
Yes, yes,
Chakravarti. So,
yes, yes.
I mean, then they, at that time, I was not known. And they took the risk of publishing me at a time when I was not known and on a subject which was so controversial. So, these two are the turning points in my life. And, it's always good to look at the positives
Yes, yes,
rather
yes,
than to go on looking at the negatives. I don't look at the
yes, yes.
negatives because they were stepping stones.
Indeed. Now, I think we should close this episode on this very positive note.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important to remember that, we expend a lot of energy in resentments and in our own grudges and grievances, some of which are valid and some of which maybe are circumstantial. We don't know. But like you, I feel that if you keep working, you can
Yes,
derive your sustenance and nourishment from your own
absolutely.
intellectual journey,
Absolutely.
and then the other things fall into place, as it were. So I'm saying this only to the younger people who may have faced a similar sort of, should I say, ostracism or unfair, uh, you know
Isolated, lonely journey.
yes, loneliness, branding,
Yes. Yeah.
and
So I don't mind the branding, but
and
it
now
was
the
a lonely
trolling,
journey.
now
Yeah.
the trolling, which can be
Yeah.
very, I think it can be very stressful to decent people when you just get trolled and from all sides. But anyhow, I think that you have found this light, and you've created, in fact, as many people I feel in India who have risen above their circumstances, you have created a body of work which stands on its own. And in a way, if I were to use a marketing term, you are now your own brand. So
Yes.
wonderful. Congratulations, and it's something to celebrate. But we will come back in our next episode to delve a little deeper into some of the topics we've raised. So thank
Yes.
you so much, Meenakshi ji.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much.
viewers.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. This is some sort of customary request we are supposed to make. But honestly, if you want content which is meaningful, which is not propaganda, and which is somewhat sincere, it doesn't really, want anything out of you other than to disseminate knowledge, then please do join us on our journey and send in your comments, because we want to do a series of conversations with Dr. Meenakshi Jain. Thank you again, and namaste.